Hello, everybody, and welcome to Where's the Money? Today, we're going to be tackling the single greatest company, largest company in the search industry, dominating the mobile platform, Google. Coming right up.
Show me the money.
You ask me, where's the money? Where's the money? I mean, I don't know where the money is.
Pay me, pay me, pay me my money down.
You wanna make a little easy money tonight?
I'm looking for easy money.
Welcome to episode number 16 of Where's the Money? Today, we are talking about Google and Google future revenue. Where's that going to come from, Douglas? Welcome, buddy.
It's adtastic.
Adtastic. I love it. Well, yes, there have been many reports about Google over the years, and its rise to fame based on search and display ads, and then of course its dominating stance in the mobile operating system as it stands right now, well over 50%. And it wavers, and it hasn't been able to get up to 60%. And some people say that there's a cap of 60% that it can actually get to, but it owns the majority of the mobile operating system. And the question is, what's next for Google as soon as the world of mobile disrupts display advertisement on the desktop that you guys use right now? What happens? What happens when there's no more desktop? What happens when Google is no longer dominant and they have to see this beautiful, pristine white screen? They have to start throwing ads all over there in order just to make some money. Douglas, what do you think, buddy?
I think many things, sir.
Well, that's good.
My first thought is that just watching the wonderful... I love when I watch our own content and learn from it. But
wow.
The Tomia Homan interview that you did, where you're talking about augmented reality and really putting it into context as one of the major desktop web-based companies from the early 2000s, Google's probably been the best at dragging its ass out of the desktop legacy into mobile. Despite the fact that we actually feel that they should be going farther, much better than some company like Facebook or for example, Yahoo.
Did you just say Yahoo?
Yeah, Yahoo.
Yahoo. Yahoo.
That being said, Google is getting really hammered right now for what seems to be... It seems that there's 5 different Googles right now trying to figure out, the mobile strategy and then what happens after mobile. So we can pick this apart anyway in terms of focusing down on what they're doing well or just what's weird. But we obviously want to roll through what they're doing with Google now, what they're doing with the Google Glass stuff, what's happening with Android, and these weird freaking side projects like self-driving cars and like a Sonos
don't go there yet.
TV and hub replacement, right? Like those things. No, Google, bad.
Well, let's frame this picture here. Is that what's about to happen? Is that as with any technology upheaval, these guys are Web 2.0 companies, and Google and search, an extension of search, and the question really is, can they transition into this mobile space? I look at a lot of these companies, and I think one of the biggest companies in jeopardy right now is Google, simply because 80 to 85% of their revenue comes from display advertisement, search, through their AdWords, AdSense, all these kind of things. It's all advertisement based, and when you take the ability to display an ad out of the equation, like Siri does, and like the future of these mobile devices do, all of a sudden Google is left scrambling. Sure, they can make a lot of money on advertisement. However, it's not going to be the same amount of money. The $35 billion that they're generating in revenue right now based on advertising is not going to be the same when it comes to mobile. Yeah. It's going to be a seventh of that.
According to Jeremiah Ouyang, in 2011, Google made $37 billion or 103 million a day. Wow. Now, we know from Tomi that 8 million of that is coming from mobile ad revenue. Yeah. So I even think, beyond the fact of that's obviously a drop off in terms of what's happening for mobile. There's 2 things here. For what Google's done, the only things that have really worked is these non-search, non-ad based models. The only thing that has worked for them is things built upon that. So you have Android in mobile, and you have this new thing that I'm just assuming is going to work, but just Google Now. But what they're doing with Chrome OS or the Google TV or anything that doesn't come from their legacy of knowing how to sell ads, it just isn't working for them. and then looking to see that the things that are working for them will be possibly shrinking because mobile growth doesn't necessarily mean more mobile ad growth. It's concerning.
Well, there are a number of things here that we're going to talk about. Obviously, that we've already just opened up, and you're right. These side projects. I was just talking today at a meeting that I had with a venture capitalist here in Ottawa, and we were talking about Google and the concept that they're doing these things, these side projects, these research projects. They seem to have curtailed them over the last year or so. But even things like Google Maps, Street View, the self-driving car, the Google Maps knapsack, these things that really don't hit their bottom line. But in a perfect world, are commerce and revenue enablers down the road. But they really are. It is concerning when I see all these things that don't have anything to do with their core business, and they're still relying on revenue from display advertising and banner ads. But take this thing about even if you take Google now, and it does work. Does that compensate for what's about to happen when it comes to the transition from desktop to mobile top search, from search to find? I don't think it does. Like
I can answer that question in two different ways. First of all, I'm less concerned about them, like the experiments that they are doing, as you say, that have been focused down, as much as Google doesn't really have a focus, have been focused down to the things that will allow them to own new types of data or different types of screens.
Sure.
So gone are all the kind of pro bono desktop, like Google Scholar, like anything that was just a desktop-based thing that helps people sort information. All those projects have been killed to focus on the projects that allow them to have new revenue streams.
Except for except for this long-term thing about trying to drive a car without a human. That will generate revenue, but it has. I mean, short term, it's a science project.
Well, but it's getting there first, right? It's getting.
But what are they doing there? Like so this is the problem though, right? So what they do well is ad stuff. Yeah.
So what they're thinking is if they can get people
not
driving their car,
they can feed them ads.
They can be watching screens, and they can feed them content that is then ad wrapped. But if they're only good at feeding content that is ad wrapped, the success or failure. So I get to break this down at a micro level. I think what they're doing with the Android OS with 4.1 and Jelly Bean, it's they're actually really now pushing a good level of what a mobile experience should be.
Absolutely.
There are obviously issues with OS fragmentation, penetration, things like that, the apps. But what they're building into the OS is really cool. I think Google now is
Jelly Bean
farther ahead of any other product in terms of offering you contextual information before you ask it based upon where you are and what you do, how much Google knows about you, which is scary but then also cool. The problem is that all of that is based upon how much searching you do. It's the only information source that you're building in. And although it rewards you for having searched, it doesn't necessarily incentivize more searches because the service itself is replacing that because it's either pushing you the information or you're using its find system. The only time you ever see search results and therefore ads is when Google now can't figure out what you're asking for and it just does like the dumb Google screen. So what that means is unless they find they're slowly, by providing a good service based upon search, killing their ability to make money off that search. So unless they monetize the find or the push information, they're by providing an excellent service slowly disrupting themselves.
Well, they are, but that's part of the business model, right? Which is disrupting yourself before a competitor disrupts them. Like look what happened to RIM. It got disrupted and didn't think that it could get disrupted, and it got stomped on. So Google's doing,
but in a way that makes you money. So release an iPad, release a tablet, and redirect sales from your PC laptop business to tablet sales. Don't offer the one service that makes people never need to search again because all you do is search well because people aren't buying Google TVs or anything else, right? So then that leads to the question: if it's not search results, the data that they're providing is through sponsored data, sponsored find, which makes them Yahoo. Yes.
Don't ever say that. Yeah, yeah.
10 years and now we're back to Yahoo, where instead of it being based upon like organic links, the best content, it's like whoever wants to, Google find sports scores brought to you by
Fox Sports.
ESPN.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, or whoever pays the most amount of money.
Yep.
Which in contrast to what Apple is doing, Apple is plugging into basically the best apps around there for their data. It's very app centric because they don't have the information themselves. So as a user, what experiences are you left with? You're left with, hi, I need to Siri, tell me what the apps that Apple's decided you should be working with says the best piece of information, or Google Now, tell me whoever paid the highest price for the information that I'm seeing.
And which is the worst?
What is better for user? Yeah, which is the worst?
There's no better solution here, but you're going to start to see this, right? Where analysts have said that, listen, the meteoric rise of Android as a platform that is generating, as Tommy says, what does he say? 1 US cent per day for every single mobile phone user out there. So average
$8 million a day.
$8 million a day. But if you start to think about the fact that that's if it maintains a 50% ownership of mobile operating systems, and I don't believe that to be the case. I don't think that they're going to. I think they've peaked. We see that now where they're fluctuating between 51 and 53%. They can't get up. Whereas to get to 50%, it took 3 quarters. Right? It took 9 months basically to get to 50% ownership or dominant ownership. And I start to see that sliding down now. I think that there's much more competition. There are going to be 5 or 6 other mobile operating systems that are going to be vying for people, and Google as a platform will diminish. It's not going to drop down to 2%, but I think that it'll probably settle somewhere around that 25 to 30%. It will be a dominant market leader, but I think that there are challenges around turning that into revenue. So, and now you've seen the major operating systems, mobile operating systems, except for Android, move away from Google Maps, for example, which is another opportunity for revenue generation. So with Microsoft, it's Bing. Obviously, with Apple, it's their own. And then you've got Nokia went with Bing as well. So you've got Android-only phones using Google Maps in the mobile space, and that's a diminishing opportunity as well. The great thing that what Google has done is they've indexed restaurant menus and those kind of things. So contextualized information around restaurant menus and location is very cool. But again, this is all piecemeal. It was like a land grab when it came to advertisements, but now all of a sudden you've got them actually having to work for that revenue. And I honestly I don't see them shifting fast enough away from the advertising model into a different model for them to actually not have one of these moments, these comeuppance moments, where it's like there's a big gap between the revenue that there once was and the transition to where this company is going to be going. And it might sound crazy. But I think that Google is about to suffer.
Yeah, well, it's you make a really interesting point because with the Google Maps, because it's we talked about this with Foursquare. What happens when the data gets old? Mm-hmm. What happens when it's not current?
Then Google just goes and buys the U.S. Postal Service, right? Because that they own all of the location data, everything. They own the most up-to-date resources around location. They know the businesses. They know when you move. They know all this stuff. And so why wouldn't Google just go and buy the Postal Service in Canada and the United States?
Well, it's a why wouldn't versus they now have to, because all these providers are now like because people aren't searching, and when people are searching, they're not using that information, right? So does Android as a functioning OS that people like and enjoy becomes ever more important because they're either losing people who are searching because people are no longer searching, or they're losing the one OS that allows them to kind of push that information through, right? So the fact that you have 10% of people a year away now using the previous version of Android becomes really concerning because they can't even onboard people to what the actual experience that they can make money off of now is because they're stuck using legacy systems.
Well, I mean, if you leapfrog the issues that we're talking about right now, and where's the future revenue for this company? And Tommy believes that for it's Google Glasses, it's that augmented layer piece, and it could be, but we're nowhere near that right now. And we saw this demonstration at Google I/O, which was basically a video camera, a bunch of guys in a hangout, jumping off of a Zeppelin and landing in the Moscone Center. And that is, I thought it was very cool. It was a great piece of film, but it didn't advance technology. There was nothing there that couldn't have been done with a webcam and a laptop. Like there was nothing. There was no advancement there. So you can stream it to a Google Hangout. Big deal. This is not advancing science or technology. The promise of augmented reality might do that. But you got to think that still with a dominant position in mobile operating system, Google has to now shift its focus to that and say, okay, so aside from ads, which they're making $8 million a day, if they maintain this 50% ownership of the operating system level, how can they leverage that operating system to make money? And I think that what they're realizing is, look, we have to create some hardware. We have to create some software. We have to marry the two. We have to own the channel, and then
we have to own screens.
We have to own screens. Ultimately,
because I think there's two ways things happen here. Right? There's the disruption. So someone just offers something better and just eats away at your business, and then there's the natural evolution of user experience, which is more glacial and can happen over 10 years. So we were just talking about Yahoo, right? And what's happened here?
We didn't talk about Yahoo. We were just mentioning them.
Okay,
we were glancing over them.
But no. So Yahoo gets replaced by Google to only have Google become what Yahoo was. But Yahoo couldn't continue being what it was to own that experience in different ways. So is it the type of thing where what Google wants to provide us now or in 10 years would be great, but that 5 to 10 year of change, something's gonna have to be happening in between because they can't just wait. So is it a type of situation where another company comes in and steals all of Google's revenue or their mind share or their screens only in 10 years' time to provide what Google wanted to offer now but can't because it just takes too long?
So you want to make some predictions on that? Because I think you hold steadfast that Apple can own that at some point, don't you?
When you own all of the screens and all of the experiences,
you own all the people.
Even people saying today, like Twitter just rolled out a new update, and they're doing things in the app update that no other app is allowed to do because Apple said that Twitter could do it. And you're screwed because what are you going to do when you own all of the screens? When you're the gatekeeper, you get to say anything. And Google isn't a very good gatekeeper.
But they could be, right? So they got a tablet that's coming out. They've got their own version of a phone that's coming out. They're going to eventually own the hardware software stack like Apple does. They're just mimicking them. This is non-innovation. This is RIM was there. It didn't work for them. The difference is that there's a vibrant, healthy, passionate community around the Android platform. The one thing that I look at though is I look at a company like Shazam as a Google disruptor. Right? Shazam across all platforms, 200 million users, Shazamming, actioning on advertisements that it isn't display advertisement, it's traditional advertisements, it's music, it's actioning on commerce, and that is
it's great fine. Yes, it's great fine. But the problem is that you'll never buy a Shazam device, so you have to use it through. You're going to use it through Facebook on the desktop, and you're going to use it through Apple on the mobile. So,
but that's fine.
And it's not the way to get. It's not the way to be the winner. It's a way to be an important piece, but you are a pawn or you are a rook, but you are not the king and the queen. But you just talked about there's a lot of people really love Google and Android. They really don't. What they really don't like
is Apple
dictating what their experience should be.
Nice.
And right now, Google is the only thing that allows them to fiddle around with stuff.
But that won't last.
Microsoft did back in the day.
But there's
a lot of no, it won't last because right now you read stories about people using all these virus-inflicted Android devices to do DDoS attacks, which is insane. And then you think that Google can release one tablet that's going to be really cool, and it's going to be the smallest percentage of the Android market, so it's going to have no real effect. In a way that with Microsoft's strategy, with very specific partnerships and more direct control over the OS experience, and a legacy of making things work in the enterprise and being secure, and not just being this just open Linux, just everything goes Wild West experience, because they actually care about the user base and not just what the ad revenue is. I think Microsoft is in a much better position than Google is.
Yeah.
Which is a weird thing to say because I spent most of my like adolescent to adult life
Hating Microsoft.
trying to break away from the Microsoft experience. But it seems as though in their approach, they're at least learning from their lessons.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Is that I think I've said this many times before. Is that one day Google is going to wake up and realize that they are a public company, and people who are enamored with Android, thinking that this is an open operating system, are going to wake up and realize that Google is a publicly traded for-profit corporation that it has the number one goal is shareholder benefit, is to increase the value for each of their shareholders. And by doing so, they're going to make some decisions that are going to ruffle the feathers of Android lovers everywhere. And all of a sudden, Android is going to be looked on as the same closed garden as Apple, simply because they have to make some money off of this thing. But the real question is, Doug, what does everybody else think? You know, how is Google going to kind of make this leap? We've seen it. You know, Web 1.0 companies couldn't make that transition to Web 2.0. Google and Facebook are Web 2.0 companies. Can they make this transition from search to find, from desktop into mobile seamlessly? You know, context here is that there was an analyst that came out yesterday with a report. Yesterday being Tuesday, you know, dates get messed up when you look at video. But an analyst came out with a report recently that said, "Listen, Google or Facebook has an opportunity to generate $1 billion in display ads in this coming year, and that might sound like a lot of money, but when you're valued at $100 billion and you've got $3.5 to $5 billion in revenue, $1 billion a year in ad, and that's the future of it." All of a sudden, you start to look at this and think, "Oh my God, what are people? How did this get to this point where they're valued at that amount of dollars?" And if that's what Facebook can do at the highly targeted, highly valued company, what can Google do at this point when it comes to generating revenue in the mobile sphere?
Well, but Facebook at least still owns the users.
Yep.
Like when it's a land grab, you have to grab useful land, and then you have to maintain it. So, people, answer the question: do you think? In what way is Google different than a really glorified, digitized, classified section?
Newspaper. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Yep. They are. Somebody described them to me as the yellow pages, the online yellow pages. Like that. I didn't go so well being the terrestrial, the real version, the concrete version of yellow pages. Good Lord, I would hate to be labeled that. You know, there's certain things like the Instagram of this or the Facebook of that. Maybe that's got a positive connotation, but I hate to be known as the yellow pages of the internet.
Yeah, you don't want to be the non-digital version
Of anything.
or compared to the non-digital version of anything.
That exists right now. That means that you haven't innovated enough. But we want to know what you guys think out there. What are Google's chances here? Yeah, right down there. Leave the comments if you have anything to say on this. I know that you guys are very vocal, especially when we have dissed Apple, we've dissed Google, we've dissed everybody in this conversation. What do you think? Can Google turn this corner and actually start to generate the revenue that they need to in order to be able to survive in mobile? And that's what I'm calling. I'm calling bad times for Google up ahead. I'm calling it right here.
You're wrong, Tommy Ahonen.
You are so wrong, Tommy Ahonen. It's the last time he's on the show. Reach out. So let us know. untether@gmail.com. Leave a comment right here. Add us. Do whatever you want to do. We can take the abuse, as you've seen on many other shows. Bring it. Can Google survive? My say is, look, it's going to be a very different company. Big layoffs coming for Google at some point because they can't make this transition. Boom! That's it.
Bye, Mrs. Woodbridge.
See you later. See you next time on Where's the Money?